As I'm recording, San Diego Regionals is going on, and I want to take just a minute to talk about the difference between a good deck and a good meta call. Hey, Nick from 9card TCG, and today we're going to be looking at a deck profile. This is not, or at least I don't know if it's the same deck being played at San Diego right now. This is just an older version of a deck. Lost Zone Goodra is back. The Goo Gang, we're back. We're making a stand, and it's doing kind of well at San Diego. So I think it's worth showing off the deck list, talking about how it works, but also what makes a deck a good pick for a tournament. I mean, that's every tournament dependent, but the difference between a good deck and a deck that's competitively viable for a particular tournament. So before we get into the video, if you haven't already, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff tells YouTube this is a good channel and other people should watch it. If you are very observant, you can tell me something that is a little bit different about this video than previous ones, something that I personally am very happy about. Also, we have a second channel, 9card Shorts. If you want to go help that out, subscribe to that. That's super appreciated as well. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this Arceus. We're going to take a... every video I got to make a mistake. It's how it has to be, apparently. We're going to take a look at this Lost Zone Goodra deck. We are looking at a Goodra deck, so naturally we need Goodra V. We only have two Goodra Vs. We're not really attacking with them. They're just going to be put down on the bench so that we can evolve them into our Goodra V Star. Now, I thought I had 3 Goodra V Stars. I only have 2, so ignore the proxy. Goodra V Star is one of probably our main attacker for the entire game. For a water metal colorless, Rolling Iron does 200 damage, and then during your opponent's next turn, you take 80 less damage, which is great. You got 270 health as a Pokemon V Star, so they have to do quite a bit of damage in order to take a one-shot on you, something that they're likely not going to do because you're a Dragon type, so you have no weakness and no resistance. You also have the ability Moisture... You have the Moisture Star ability. You got that Moisture Star. Oh, man. So, Moisture Star is an ability that you can use once per turn, and it just heals all damage off of the Pokemon that uses this ability. So, you can only use one Moisture Star. I'm going to stop doing that. You can only use one Moisture Star per game, but, I mean, think about it. You wait until your Goodra has 250, 260 damage on it, and then you just heal it all away, and it's like, okay, try again, buddy. And it's really kind of annoying to deal with because you're just tanking so much damage that it can be hard to deal with. Now, how do we actually power this Pokemon up? Well, this is a Lost Zone engine, so of course we're going to be using Comfey. Comfey has the flower selecting ability. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon's in the active, you can look at the top 2 cards, choose one of them to go into your hand, one of them goes into the Lost Zone. So we're going to be building cards into the Lost Zone very, very quickly. Why do we get cards into the Lost Zone? Well, if we get 4 cards in the Lost Zone, we can use Cramorant here. Cramorant has the Spit Innocently attack, does 110 damage for 2 waters and a colorless. But if we have 4 or more cards in the Lost Zone, we get to just use Spit Innocently for free. We get to attack for free, ignoring the energy cost of this Pokemon, which is super, super good. We got Radiant Greninja over here. We're not attacking with Radiant Greninja. We could, in theory, attack with Radiant Greninja. Moonlight Shuriken is a really good attack to do 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. You gotta discard 2 energies in order to do it, but it's an option that we have. We're really using it for the Concealed Cards ability. Discard an energy card from your hand, draw 2 cards. That is going to be super, super helpful in a deck like this. We kind of want to dig and dig. Now, you might be wondering, Nick, why do we only have 2 Goodra Vs and 3 Goodra V Stars? Well, the answer is if we prize a Goodra V Star, we still want to have 2 in deck. And also, we want to try to reduce the number of Goodra Vs we have because we don't really want to start it. We want to start a Comfey or a Greninja or something like that so that we can easily move out of the active. Goodra has a 3 retreat cost, and we also want it to be on the bench so we can power it up and evolve it and then start attacking when it's the V star. So that's kind of a really important part to this deck. Some other Pokemon we have is Drapion V. I'm just going to move this over. Drapion V, it's really just for the Mew matchup and also for like Mewtwo V Star or V Union, or I guess Mewtwo V Star as well, but really Mewtwo V Union and most importantly Mew. Mew V Max is really, really annoying, so we can just throw this Drapion down and knock out a Mew V Max thanks to the Wild Style ability, which says that for each Fusion Strike, Rapid Strike, or Single Strike Pokemon your opponent has in play, the attack cost of this Pokemon is reduced by 1 colorless. It only attacks for 4 colors. I say only attacks for 4 colors. The attack is 4 colors, which is really high, but in the Mew V Max matchup, every single one of that Pokemon is a Fusion Strike Pokemon, so if they have 3 or more, you're attacking for 1, probably you're attacking for free. You do 190 times 2 is enough to KO any Dark Weak Pokemon in the game, including Mew V Max. So really, really useful. And that's kind of all our Pokemon. We got the Cramorant, we got the Greninja, some Comfeys, Goodras, and also the Drapion. So kind of nice. Moving on to our trainers. We're going to start with the supporters. Colress's Experiment, super, super important. It's one of the main ways we're going to get cards into the Lost Zone outside of something like Comfey. Now, Colress says, look at the top 5 cards of your hand, put 3 of them. Colress says, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put 3 of them into your hand, 2 into the Lost Zone. So, yes, we're not going to get as many cards as we would, like if we were to use Professor's Research, but we don't want to discard our resources. We really, really want to keep them. Because if we're discarding them and also trying to Lost Zone them, we're going to be losing too many cards, and it's just not going to work as well. So Colress allows us to keep pieces we need while just gaining more and also putting cards into the Lost Zone. We have 3 copies of Melony. Melony is a great card for this deck because we can combo it with Greninja to power up our, say, Drapion, or more likely, our Goodra. Melony says that you may take a water energy from your discard and attach it to one of your Pokemon V and then draw 3 cards. So we use concealed cards to discard a water energy, draw 2 cards, and then we play Melony to get the water energy we just put into the discard onto a Goodra, draw 3 cards, and then we can attach for turn. And now we just got 2 energies on a Goodra in a single turn, which means if it's our second turn, we went first, we attach an energy. The next turn, we go ahead, attach an energy, discard and with concealed cards, Melony onto the Goodra. We're attacking immediately turn 2, which is super nice. Something this deck kind of wants to do if you can. You want to get rolling with that Goodra. That is a pun, yes. You want to get rolling with Goodra quickly, most of the time. We do have 2 copies of Boss's Orders. Sometimes people want to bring up a Pokemon that is maybe problematic. Maybe we want to try to either knock it out because it has 200 or less health. Maybe we want to put some chip damage, get it into the active before it can start dealing a lot of damage to us, something like that. Remember, we have to attack with Goodra in order to get the damage reduction the following turn. So we need to attack, and we have to pick our targets carefully. We also have 1 copy of, well, I guess we'll talk about the Serena first. We have a copy of Serena. It's similar to a boss. You can move one of your opponent's bench Pokemon V from the bench to the active, or you could discard up to 3 cards from your hand. You have to discard 1, but you can discard up to 3 and then draw into your 5 cards in your hand. Just a way of increasing consistency while also being able to bring up specific targets and knock them out or try to trap them in the active. Chip damage, and by chip, I mean you're not doing chip damage. You are doing chunk damage, my friend. 200 damage is not chip. That is chunk. You are chunking along. Anyway, there's the Roxanne. If our opponent has taken 3 or more prizes, that's when we can play Roxanne. And when we do play it, both players shuffle their hand into their deck. Your opponent draws 2 and you draw 6. So really, really nice, kind of a comeback thing. Something Goodra wants to do. You want to try to either try to just stall your opponent out and run them out of resources so they're not able to really hit into that Goodra the way they want to. You're just healing that damage with the Moisture Star. You're taking 80 less each turn. It's really kind of annoying. Now, we have a bunch of trainers. We have these Comfeys, right? So we're going to use Scoop Up Net. so that we can reset the ability. And we talked in the last, or not maybe the last video, but we talked in a previous video about how to use Comfey and how to cycle through Comfeys with things like Scoop Up Net and Switch. So if you're not familiar, go check out How to Play Lost Box. It's a very, very, I think, good video. But it talks about that. So Scoop Up Net is super important for getting things like Comfey out of the active so we can reuse another one. We can also use Scoop Up Net to pick up a Greninja, put it back down onto the bench so we can reuse the ability. If we really, really need to dig for a Melony or a V-Star or something, we can use Scoop Up Net to pick up that Greninja off the bench, put it down, and reuse concealed cards. It's a way to draw 4 cards in a single turn without using a supporter. Really solid. We do also have several switch cards. We have 2 escape ropes. That was thrown down sloppily, and I don't like that. 2 escape ropes. Your opponent switches one of their bench with their active, and then you do the same. It is worth noting that if your opponent only has, if you only have one Pokemon in play, your active Goodra, you don't swap anything. It's just your opponent does. So kind of nice. We have a copy of Switch, and then we also need a way to explode our bench early game. That's going to be those Battle VIP passes. That's where going second is really, really nice because we're able to play a Colress. We're able to use a bunch of Comfeys, and we can dig pretty aggressively for these Battle VIP passes to get more Comfeys in play, get our Goodra V in play, get our Greninja in play, and then maybe even start attacking with something like Cramorant. Remember, 110 damage with Cramorant plus the 200 from Goodra is 310 damage, enough to knock out pretty much any Pokemon that's seeing play right now. So, worth noting. Sometimes we prize a Pokemon that we don't want to, like a Drapion in the Mew matchup. So we have Hisuian Heavy Ball, look at your prizes, and then take a basic Pokemon from your prizes, put it into your hand, and you put Heavy Ball into your prizes. So you don't gain a prize, but you are just, it's, even if you know there's nothing you need in your prizes. You have your Greninja, you have your Cramorant, you have your Drapion, whatever. It's still worth playing the Heavy Ball just so you can look at your prizes. Knowing what your prizes are is very, very important, and I recommend every time you search your deck at the beginning of a game, like that first or second search, start looking for cards that are going to be important for this particular matchup. You're playing Mew, know that you got that Drapion. Know that you have, you know, say your Ordinary Rods to get basic Pokemon or basic energies from the discard back into your deck. Gonna be super important for the Mew matchup because then you just attack with Drapion twice, boom, game over. Some other cards we have in this deck are Mirage Gate. Now, we talked about using the Lost Zone engine to get cards into the Lost Zone. Cramorant is one of those cards that we use from getting things into the Lost Zone, but Mirage Gate is the other, and it's also a very important card. Mirage Gate, if we have 7 or more cards into the Lost Zone, we can search our deck for 2 basic energies of different types and attach them to our Pokemon in any way we want. Well, in this deck, we'll spoiler alert, we'll just kind of skip to the energies. We have 6 water energies. I'll put them, I don't even know where to put them. We'll put them over here. 6 water energies, 4 metal energies, 2 capture energies, and a V-Guard energy. So these capture energies are really nice because we're able to attach the capture energy to a Comfey, get a second Comfey, discard the capture energy with a hard retreat to get the second Comfey into play after we use the first one's flower selecting. We can do a lot of stuff like that, and it's just another way to help build our board, thin the deck, and start making some moves. The Mirage Gate lets us search for that water and metal energy in that mid-game. You know, we start, a couple of turns have gone by, we played a couple of Colress, we used Comfey a couple times. Now we can get a second Goodra into play and start powering it up immediately with something like Mirage Gate. It's also really nice in the Mewtwo v Union matchup. The Mewtwo v Union has 300, I think like 320 or 330 health, and so you're really going to want to use that Drapion, but you know, getting all those energies can be kind of difficult. Since they don't have any Fusion Strike, Rapid Strike, or Single Strike Pokemon, you have to hit for the 4, like the full 4 energies in order to attack. But we can do that in a single turn. Attach for turn, Melony a water energy from the discard, and the Mirage Gate any 2 energies. There you go. There's 4 energies on that Drapion, and you're able to just attack immediately, which is really cool. That also works in Mew matchups where they're running Path. Mew running Path is pretty common. Judge Path, Marnie Path, things like that are fairly common in the Mew VMAX matchup. So if you're stuck with Path in play and you need to use Drapion, just know you have the out between Mirage Gate, Attach Return, Melony, or you could just go double Mirage Gate and you could still attack pretty freely and pretty easily. Now, if we need to find a Drapion during the game, we do have 2 copies of Ultra Ball, so that we can go ahead and discard 2 cards from our hand, search our deck for any Pokemon we want. This is probably going to be for like a Goodra VSTAR as we, like when we're ready to evolve and attack. And then we do have our tools. 2 Big Parasol. We need to protect ourselves against Yveltal. We probably don't need to protect ourselves against something like Giratina, but being able to protect us from Yveltal and also Sableye is very, very important. So Big Parasol prevents any effects of attacks done to the active Pokemon if Big Parasol is attached to the active. So what does that mean? Your opponent is playing Amazing Rare Yveltal. The attack doesn't do damage, it has an effect, and the effect is your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. Big Parasol protects against effects. We do have a copy of Air Balloon so that we get a free retreat every turn onto likely a Comfey. Something gets knocked out, we just promote the Comfey with the Air Balloon, and now we're able to Flower Select, freely get it out of the active, and make another play. And then 2 copies of Training Court to get those energies back. This is a really nice combo with something like Radiant Greninja. We can go ahead, discard a card from our hand, use Radiant Greninja's ability to discard it, then play the Training Court, use the Training Court to get that energy back, and then attach it to something for turn. So we didn't lose anything, we just got to draw 2 cards for free. So really nice. It's also a way to bump things like Path. It's a way to bump things like Temple of Sinnoh if we want to use this V-Guard energy. We didn't talk about that. It's just... your Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks of Pokemon V. Really nice because that means if you are being hit by a Pokemon V, Goodra says you take 80 less, and then VSTAR says you take 30 less. And you're taking 110 less damage from that attack. They have to do 380 damage in order to one-shot you with both V-Guard energy and after you've used Rolling Iron. There are builds where you can, instead of using Radiant Greninja, you can use Radiant Gardevoir, take an extra 20 less damage. I do like the Greninja better. You do have the option to Mirage Gate onto the Greninja, attach for turn, and now, do 90 to 2 different things. Maybe you're knocking out 2 Comfeys, get your last 2 prizes. Maybe you're knocking out, I don't know, maybe you're just putting some chip damage into something that would want to attack the next turn, and then you can use the Goodra. There's a lot of things that can be used with the Greninja, and it's also just a great way of putting energy into the discard for Melony, and just that really solid consistency piece. So there you go, that's the whole deck. So that is the Lost Zone Goodra deck, and we didn't get the chance to really talk about the difference between a good deck and a good meta call. What makes a good deck? Well, the deck needs to have strong damage, good energy acceleration, and, consistency. Those are some of like the big things. You want to be able to draw cards, you want to be able to do damage, and you want to be able to attack quickly. If you can do those things, you probably have a good deck. Something like Shadow Rider Calyrex. That is a good deck. It can do a lot of damage. It has energy acceleration. It has draw. There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't fit into the meta right now because there's so many things that can deal with the Shadow Rider very, very easily. So Goodra isn't always the best pick, and knowing what deck to play at a tournament is just as good of a skill as knowing how to play a deck. So I just wanted to very quickly mention, any deck can be good, but not every deck is good for a particular event. You look at Lugia a couple of tournaments ago, it did not do very well. All these decks like the Articuno Paralysis deck, the Vikavolt Item Lock deck with Aerodactyl, those kind of decks did really well. And if you knew people were going to play Lugia, and Lugia doesn't really run switch outs, they don't run escape ropes or switches or ways to deal with status conditions, those decks conventionally might be good, but they were a great pick for that particular tournament. And then moving forward, okay, Well, last tournament, everybody got blindsided by this tournament, by these paralysis decks. Lugia is going to adapt. They're going to start playing things to deal with it. These decks probably aren't a good call anymore, even though they are actually a good deck. They're not good for that tournament anymore because the deck you're trying to counter is going to deal with your counters. So you have to think of something else, or just play the Lugia deck with the counters to paralysis. So that's just a very quick note on meta calling, and to meta calling itself could be its own video. And honestly, I think there are people who can talk about how to meta call and how they go about meta calling better than I can. So maybe we'll try to bring that, get a guest on to talk about that. But for now, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, found it informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. And let me know, are you going to any regionals? I'm going to be going to a few: Knoxville, Charlotte, Hartford, NAIC. That's where I'm going to be going. So if you're going to any of those, please let me know. I want to say hi. And I guess for now, I'll just see you next time.